Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Thank you for joining us. We always wonder how intelligent people around us are. Did you know that there are different types of intelligence? Parents want to know this about their children, teachers want to know how intelligent their students are, and employers want to know this about potential employees. But most times, when we want to test how intelligent people are, we think about mathematical questions, puzzles, or quizzes. But many experts have proven that there are different types of intelligence. There is what you call musical intelligence, which is about being sound smart. There is spatial intelligence, which is about being picture smart. There is linguistic intelligence, which is about being word smart. There is interpersonal intelligence, which is about being people smart, and others. One type of intelligence that has become very important, particularly for employers of labor all over the world, is emotional intelligence. More and more employers are coming to the conclusion that the best employees to hire are those who, together with the right qualifications and competencies, possess high emotional intelligence. Our guest author in this segment is Tolu Ajayi, who is a young Nigerian human resource professional and psychologist based in the United Kingdom. Tolu has written this book titled Using Emotional Intelligence at Work. The book takes a look at the importance of emotional intelligence to individual work performance. If you are still a bit unclear about what this whole emotional intelligence thing is about, Tolu's book and our chat with her might just prove to be helpful. Enjoy it. Tolu, nice to have you on Channel's Book Club.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here.
Welcome here. Using emotional intelligence at work. That's the title of your book.
Yes, it is.
Before we dig into the subject, this is your first book, right?
Yes.
What was the experience like? New author?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I really did enjoy writing the book because it is a subject that I'm really passionate about. It was something that I, had to do as part of my project for my final year within university. I studied human resource management and psychology, and this was definitely an area that I thought was practical, something that I experienced as well in life, and I thought, okay, I wanted to go into and do a bit more research and find out exactly, what emotional intelligence is, how can it help, basically.
So you just converted it into... I've met a few writers like that who had their final year papers or master's degree or PhD theses and then converted them into books. The challenge, a few of them shared with me, was how do you simplify something very academic into something you want everybody to read? Did you have that challenge?
Yeah, I did. So I spent about 2 months rewording and rewriting the book in order to suit, the audience that you're talking about. And it is quite difficult, but, I took it to test. I got my younger sister, who was about 17 at the time, to read the book, and I said, if she can understand it, I'm pretty sure people can.
Okay, that's good. Now, emotional intelligence, that's a subject that is very, very important now globally. People are talking about emotional intelligence, but it's still a bit, it still needs to be simplified for a lot of people out there. So let's start by breaking this down. Using emotional intelligence at work. What exactly is emotional intelligence? From your book, I noticed that you were quoting different models, but let's simplify, break it down to bits. What's emotional intelligence, basically?
Okay, so how I would describe emotional intelligence, I guess in layman's terms, would be understanding your own emotions. So I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm angry. Understanding why you feel those emotions, and then being able to manage and do something about those emotions. Now, not only your own emotions, but also understanding the emotions of other people. So for example, I walk into a meeting and I can see that someone who's my colleague who would usually be smiling, maybe is frowning. Emotional intelligence is understanding that, okay, I'm not going to go into that meeting and start the conversation off the exact same way I would if that person was smiling. So understanding that there's a time and a place for specific actions and behaviors based on the emotions that people display. How do people display their emotions? Through their facial expressions, body language, tone of voice. So it's really being able to read between the lines. So basically having a bit of a third eye into how people are feeling, and then also how you yourself are feeling. So hopefully that explains what emotional intelligence is.
We're all emotional beings.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. So basically, it's about understanding emotions.
Yeah.
Of yourself.
Yep.
And then of other people.
Yes.
Now, when you say emotional intelligence, that connotes some kind of measurement, doesn't it?
It does.
Like when you talk about intelligence of somebody, you're talking about how bright the person is, or otherwise. Is that the same with emotions?
It is, and you know, the book actually goes into looking at some of those controversies, which is what they've been described as. Because if you look at intelligence, you're thinking about measuring how much someone is able to understand emotions versus other people, right? Other people have described it as emotional ability, which is basically just your ability to be able to do the things that I've just described. So in looking at it as a form of intelligence, measurements are involved. There are a number of different measurements that are available. So there is the measurement that assumes that people have a specific ability, and that ability differs between people, and some people have a greater ability than others.
Just talking about emotional ability now.
Yes, emotional ability. And there are some other measures that measure your emotional ability as a personality trait. So some psychologists have made the assumption that actually emotional intelligence isn't so much an intelligence, it's more a trait, such as being an introvert, extrovert, being conscientious. So there are different measures that connote different meanings of emotional intelligence. So the book also goes into that.
So if I'm able to understand how Tolu feels,
yes,
how happy is she, how sad is she, how much does she experience mood swings, and all that, am I emotionally intelligent?
Well, that's something that it's a good question that you ask, and I would say, looking at all the research that I've done and what I understand from emotional intelligence, as well as my practical experience within the working environment, I would argue that we can't come to a conclusion that you are, but you probably have or are exhibiting some emotionally intelligent behaviors, which, through greater practice and greater understanding and maybe a few other situations, we might be able to determine whether you do have a high level of emotional intelligence. What I would argue is that everyone probably does have standard level of emotional intelligence, some more than others, but I'm sure everyone's been in a working environment or situation or relationship where people just don't get it in terms of, you're clearly not in the mood, but people are still coming up to you, chirpy, happy. Those people there, would you describe them as not having high emotional intelligence? Yes. Would you say that they don't have emotional intelligence at all? I would argue that maybe that's probably not the case.
Tolu, this is all psychology. You're a psychologist. This is all psychology. How much is, or how well, or how much, as the case may be, is psychology used or applied in the workplace? Your book is about using emotional intelligence at work. And while I was reading it, that was one of the questions that popped up in my head. Particularly in a country like Nigeria, how well is psychology applied in the workplace in Nigeria?
So,
and then you can then bring it down more specifically to emotional intelligence.
Well, I'd see this in two strands, right? So I'd see it in the strands of actual planned strategic psychology, the application of that in the workplace, which you would argue is done through leadership development programs. I'd say more so around like training and development.
Something deliberate,
something deliberate
planned.
And structured. There's that strand of it. And how well is that applied to the workplace? I would say not as much, because I don't think a lot of people understand how to apply psychology to the workplace as well as they should.
And that creates all sorts of problems, right?
Exactly, because people come, for example, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'll just kind of break that down slowly now, is that basically people go to work and they have needs. They have the need to feel safe, the need to be paid, the need to
feed.
Exactly, and the need to build relationships at work. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they believe that if we satisfy those needs, people will be motivated to do well at work, which is why people get paid, which is why people work in teams, etc., right? That's the basic application of that. But that may not always be the case in certain situations. For example, if you're in an organization that gives you a free house and a free car, you may not, there may be some other basic needs that are not being met that you would need. For example, free lunch, for example. That may not actually motivate you because you have a free house and a free car. So why do I need free lunch, right? That is the application of that theory, but not tailored to the needs of the people. There's a second strand, which is people use psychology at work every day. We are human beings, and psychology is the study of behavior. And everyone's behaving, everyone's talking, everyone's interacting. Now, the psychology I decide to use at work may be different to the psychology you use, but just because it's planned doesn't mean it's not applied to the workplace. So I would say that it is applied very much on an individual basis, but in terms of structurally, like something, you know, put down from the organization, maybe not so much.
Not really.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, so your book helps out a lot with those two strands.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have so much time, Tolu. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
And congrats on your book, Using Emotional Intelligence at Work. Thank you very much for joining us on Channels Book Club. Thanks.
Thank you.